Hi, friends, and welcome to another episode of your Bish Therapist podcast. And today, it's going to be a solo episode with just your girl for several reasons. Number one, I'm going to be talking about all things Summer House. I'm going to talk about the reunion trailer. I'm going to talk about the recent episode, season finale of Summer House. I'm also going to talk about In the City because we are watching the Amanda West and Kyle Sierra drama go into In the City. And so I feel sometimes it's unfair to have a guest when I have a lot to say. So I'm here to mention it all, which used to be one of my favorite Bravo phrases, but now Bethany Frankel is just one of my least favorite people. She's just become so obnoxious, but I still like the term mention it all. Because if you didn't know, that's where it came from. It was when Bethany and Dorinda, like the old school cast of Roni, they were at Dorinda's Bluestone Manor. And, they're calling Bethany out about some things. And she says, mention it all. And she lifts her legs in like a V. It's just one of the funniest moments of Bravo history. So, anywho, that was a little tangent for me. So, yes, today I'm going to be talking about all those things. At the top of the episode, I want to mention a couple of things. First of all, thank you for everyone who listens to this podcast, who supports, who's, listened to my recent episode about the grief bubble that I'm in and things like that. So thank you all for your support. It has come to my attention that I am really bad at promoting myself. It's probably like a treatment objective in my therapy, I think, at this point. So please just let me share with you some other ways that you can support. In addition to listening to this free podcast, the podcast comes out every Tuesday, but on Patreon and some other things, there are ways that you can get early releases. So I'm going to share with you the ways that you can subscribe to me and then what that subscription means. So on Patreon, www.patreon.com/yourbishtherapist. I have a community of probably about 400 people now. So thank you all to the people who continue to join the Patreon. On Patreon, there are 4 different levels. One, you can join for free. I do some free content, but most of it is for the paid tiers. But with the free tier, what you get is you can participate in a Zoom once a year. Although I recently did a Zoom for the free people and nobody showed up. So, listen, I can only offer things. If people don't do them, that's totally fine. No problem. And then there's a book club that I'm supposed to be starting. And my gosh, I've been putting this off because I've been in the weeds, but that eventually will start and will involve the free tier. Now, the $5, $10, and $15 tiers, what you get is, although my episode comes out on Tuesdays, I will post it for Patreon on Sunday. So on Sundays, I will post a full video. So this is what you get with Patreon, a full video, ad-free, because so many people hate ads, which I get it. I understand. And early release. Also on Patreon, I will post some bonus content, which for those of you who listened to my last couple episodes, I did make an announcement that I will be doing more episodes. I made that announcement on the day that I had to end up putting my grandfather in hospice. I am his caregiver. And so I was like, oh, cool. I've made this announcement and now I'm in the damn weeds. But listen, that is such as life. So for now, I'm doing one full episode a week and then a bite-sized bish. And then at some point when things kind of settle and calm for me with my grandfather, I will be doing more episodes and more bonus episodes for Patreon. The other ways that you can support me are Spreaker Supporter Club. You get early releases and ad-free, but they don't allow video. Now, I am posting my video to Spotify because Spotify has been allowing videos. So you can watch the video on Spotify if you listen on Spotify as well. And then I also have my YouTube, Your Bish Therapist, YOURBISH Therapist. So everything I'm talking about is under the same name, Your Bish Therapist, where, I don't have a ton of subscribers, but the ones that I do have, thank you so much. And the last way is Apple Podcasts. I've put myself on there to be eligible for subscriptions, but there's no subscribers yet. So they say build it and they will come, which is what I'm doing. On Apple Podcasts, you can subscribe and you can get all the episodes, you can get them ad-free, and you can get early release. And as soon as I have a subscriber, I'll be putting all the episodes on. It'll be the same thing as Patreon, just without the video. So I would love, 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 love if you guys could either follow me on Instagram at Your Bish Therapist, comment, engage. That's a way you can listen to this podcast. Even if it's free, that's fine. I definitely understand. Let me be clear about something. While I'm promoting myself right now, because I literally need to, I do understand that with the way things in this country are, prices are out of control, gas, groceries, and I don't understand how a lot of people are managing it. Okay. So I understand that right now, if subscribing is not appropriate, listening to the free podcast and following me on Instagram, whatever combination of those things, thank you, thank you, thank you. This is for people who are looking for more engagement. If you want to be a part of the Bish community, if you want to talk to other people, that's what Patreon's for. There's like a group chat where you all can post things and talk to one another. You can private message me. We do Zooms a lot more frequently, the paid members, and especially tiers 2 and 3. Tier 3, I allow private Zooms, and I'm going to be doing a couple of those. So just keep in mind that I understand, and whatever works for you, great. But if you're looking for more community, if you're looking for ways to support and you have the resources and ability to do that, please head over to Patreon, Spreaker Supporter Club, YouTube, and Apple Podcast. So end of spiel. Thank you so much for listening. I don't know if I'll ever be super comfortable. I'm comfortable advocating for myself, but in this way, not always so much. So now that we've gotten that boring stuff out of the way, let's talk about Summer House. So the Summer House reunion trailer came out, and when it did, I think I speak for most Bravo fans when I say we were gobsmacked at how good it was, because with all of these Summer House leaks, the audio leaks, there were 3 of them. I wasn't sure how it was going to impact my experience of the trailer, of the reunion, and things like that. And as people who listen to this know, I didn't talk about the leaks. I'm a rule follower by nature, and I heard them, like I did listen to them. And I saw this, it was like a cartoon that Andy Cohen commented on Instagram, where it was like this cartoon of someone going in for confession, like in a Catholic style confession. And they confessed that they listened to the 3-part Summer House leak. And then, I guess like the priest or whatever, he kind of had something snappy to say. And of course, I'm butchering this. But the point is that Andy commented that he loved it. And so I think we're all past the point where, that was drama and nonsense. But this reunion trailer was epic. I was like, what leak? That leak didn't matter at all. And so in the trailer, we see just West doing the same thing he did at that reunion with Sierra, where he was just quiet, had this dumb look on his face, just looking down, giving this puppy dog face, like people should feel bad for him. When in reality, I think the reason he's not saying anything is because he's adamant that he didn't do anything wrong. We now know that West has come forward to friends, and there's been all sorts of leaks that West isn't sorry. And so what I'm going to talk about on the podcast is the fact that, to me, West and Amanda are really telling on themselves in terms of the things that they've said in this episode. And for me, for my purposes, there's just so much between the trailer, between Summer House episode that flawlessly transitioned to In the City. I mean, these Bravo producers, these people are working overtime, because to me, honestly, it was pure cinema. The way that Summer House ended going into In the City, which it made me feel like that the Summer House season finale was supposed to be a series finale going to In the City. And so that also begs the question. It's like they announced it up front that Summer House will now be coming back because of all this drama, right? Of course, they're going to capitalize on that. And on Watch What Happens Live, Kyle Cook went on with Lindsay, which was wild to watch. They had a lot to say. But the one thing Kyle said, which is just like, I can't believe that I'm saying that Kyle is like a stand-up guy. I think Kyle's a good guy. He just wasn't a good husband, because whatever Amanda has done person. The fact is that their relationship was bad from day one, and they both played a role in that. So here's the thing. It's like Amanda was in this like saint arc until we found out about all this drama, and now she's the villain, and now Kyle's in the saint arc, and it's like, whoa, 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 whoa. Nobody here is a saint. Everyone plays a role. And when a relationship ends with irreparable rupture, both parties or all parties, however many people are in the relationship, because not all relationships are just two people, all parties contribute to the deterioration of that relationship for the most part. The one asterisk to this is when it comes to domestic violence, then that's not both parties participating. That's one person being abusive. But otherwise, you understand my point, is that we all play a role. And I think that what emotional maturity tells us is that we aren't passive participants in our own life. Okay. So part of what I'm going to be talking about today is the ways that Sierra, Amanda, West, Kyle, everyone, we all perpetuate our behaviors based on the things that have happened to us as a child, in my opinion, right? In psychology, there are hundreds of different theoretical orientations, approaches, cognitive behavioral therapy, dialectical behavior therapy, DBT, which is like emotion regulation and interpersonal effectiveness skills, mindfulness, a whole bunch of other things. But what I've learned personally through my practice as a therapist and treating my own complex PTSD, anxiety, and depression. So I've been a patient and I've been a professional and I've been a professional patient, which is what I call myself to the doctors that I go to. They're like, oh, you're really on top of all this stuff. I was like, yes, I'm a professional patient. This is my full-time job. I have a resume of my medical issues that I bring to a point. It's just like, it's a job like anything else. But the point is that when we grow up, we are born and then our families inflict generational wounds, and so, a lot of times not purposely, but it's just we're born into these generational ancestral wounds that have been going on for generations. And the way that, our great, great, great grandparents, and then it trickles all the way down to our parents, it impacts the way that they interact with us, which impacts our view of ourselves, others, and the world. Okay. So this is very simplistic, but what I'm describing is the fact that we all behave the way that we do because of the way that we've experienced how our family has treated us, the relationship with our parents, the relationship that we're taught to have with ourselves. All of this is really formed at a young age. Now, are there a million ways to change it? Absolutely, positively. But we cannot change patterns that we are not aware of. Okay. And this is no shame to anybody. And there was even a point for me where I didn't realize that I had complex PTSD. I didn't realize the ways that I was acting out because of horrendous anxiety and unresolved trauma and all of this stuff. And so I think the long point of this is that everyone in this situation, everyone needs to understand, why am I making the choices that I'm making? And I'll give you a really good example of this. We'll start out with Lindsay from Summer House. On In the City, she revealed that the father of her daughter, Gemma, who, by the way, Gemma might be the greatest part of In the City, because Lindsay doesn't show her on social media, which she has said is her ex's, he doesn't want her shown on social media, but it's okay that Lindsay films. And Lindsay made the point that if I'm filming In the City and I'm filming about being a mother, I can't film that without my daughter. And she's 1,000% right. So, kids being on TV, I understand that's always like a tough topic to navigate. But seeing Gemma, I'm just like, oh my God, that little squishy face. And she, Lindsay joked about how Gemma gives faces like Lindsay will give. Like, she's very facially expressive. And I just absolutely love that. There was one scene where she was like shopping with Amanda, and Gemma's face was, she was like giving major side eye. And I was like, I love this kid. She's so sweet. And she's just, you know how you have that thing with kids, like when they're really cute, you just want to squish them? just want to squish her. But anyway, so Lindsay talked about on In the City how her ex broke up with her. She admitted he broke up with her. And in previews for what we're going to see, she needs to understand, I guess she maybe talked about this in therapy, why she keeps choosing people who abandon her. And on Summer House, it started with, we went from the apology dune to the closure igloo. And Lindsay and Carl's conversation was so interesting, but it got, I couldn't post about everything because when I'm posting on social media about some of this stuff, I literally will have, I think I had 30 slides of notes, which is, by the way, so much work. It's exhausting, but there's so much to cover. I can't possibly cover it all. And so it's funny because I explain that. And then sometimes people on social media are like, oh, well, I wish you would have talked about this. I wish you would have talked about that. And it's like, well, I'm a human person. I can only cover so much. It would literally be like the length of a literal dissertation if I put in like all of my notes. And so people on social media are very fickle because it's like, Mel Robbins is a really good example of a terrible grifter who, number one, she stole author Cassie Phillips' Latham theory. She stole that. And she takes psychological tidbits that she's certainly not an expert on because she's a lawyer. So she's not an expert in psychology. And she cuts them down into bite-sized pieces to become like, viral and things like that. I refuse to do that. I could have more followers. I could be more popular. I could have an amazing TikTok, which, by the way, I deleted TikTok because I've had it with the whole ownership. I've just had it with like the oligarchy billionaire boys club. And I'm just like, well, I'm in too deep with Instagram, but I wasn't with TikTok. So I just deleted it. Sorry. Bye. Things that don't serve me, they just have to go away. And my point being is that I can't always cut things down to be bite-sized and palatable for everybody because that would remove me from my morals and values. And I think that would be unethical because it takes away so much of the nuance. Like there's a lot of situations and ways that may not always be appropriate. But some people do it really well. And, I'm just not great at social media. I'm an elder millennial. What can I say? Emphasis on elder. Okay. But going back to what I was saying is that Carl and Lindsay finally had this conversation and it was really, really fascinating for me to watch. And then when I understood what she was talking about it in the city, I was like, oh, this all makes so much sense. So let me share with you what happened. So Lindsay talks to Carl, admitting that she has been bearing painful emotions since Carl ended their engagement. Because let me be clear about something. Lindsay has a very severe mother wound. And a mother wound is when we don't get the love and support that we need from our mother, mother wound, father wound. Basically, our parents are the most important people in our lives and they're supposed to love us. And when they don't, we don't stop loving the parent, we stop loving ourselves. And so with Carl's mom was a huge mother figure to Lindsay. And so after Carl ended their engagement, I think that when we saw last year's Freedom Dinner and we saw like an angry Lindsay, it was because she had a lot of unresolved emotions that come out as anger. Because for so many folks, myself included, anxiety or sadness can come out as irritability and anger outbursts. And I think honestly, that's kind of where Kyle's at too. I think, that's kind of a whole other situation because he really is being lied to. But my point with Lindsay is that when people thought the Freedom Dinner was rude, it was because she was coming from a place of being very wounded. And so after admitting to Carl that she did have a lot of unresolved emotions, she admitted that she felt aggrieved by Carl's mom, Sharon. And so seeing Sharon at Carl's soft bar opening brought up really painful feelings to the surface. And because Lindsay has a mother wound, by the way, a mother wound will wreak havoc when you become a mother yourself. Now, I say wreak havoc, meaning it can create amazing possibilities of growth and learning, but it also creates very sad emotions about you see how young a child is and you see their sweet, squishy little face at the same age that you were when you were abandoned or when you were hurt, when you were abused. And it busts through this cognitive dissonance, which is basically like an intellectualization of, okay, I know that I didn't deserve this treatment from this parent, but then you have your own child or you love a child who's the same age when it happened. And then you start to realize, oh, wow, I didn't deserve any of this. This child didn't ask for this. Like children don't come into this world being difficult. They're children. And adults who, are narcissistic or incapable or what have you, they say, well, you're too much for me. This child is too much. This child is, blah, blah, blah. But parents are the only people responsible for managing this. And yet, unfortunately, many parents with a lot of unhealthy, unresolved trauma just continue to pass it along. And the one thing I appreciate about this generation is that kids are doing things differently. They are talking about emotions. There are conversations about real things. But older generations, like Lindsay's mom and my parents and things like that, they did a lot of damage. And so the scene between Lindsay and Sharon at Soft Bar, it was very uncomfortable. And Lindsay wasn't kind, but it was coming from a place of being very wounded and not having the language or capacity to say, Sharon, this is how you hurt me. I felt abandoned by Carl. I felt abandoned by you. And some people might think, well, it's Carl's mom, but we can't forget they were friends for a long time. They were engaged. Lindsay having this history of a mother wound, it's just like any mother figure in her life has to take that really seriously. And I understand why Sharon didn't. And I'm not saying she was wrong. I just understand how the hurt happened in this whole situation. So Lindsay identified feeling abandoned, especially after seeing headlines that, these headlines popped up from Us Weekly that Carl's mom danced with Sheena in Mexico on the eve of the canceled wedding. And I was like, oh my gosh, somewhere Sheena is just like, oh, I'm on TV again. Somewhere Sheena is like so excited that her name is being mentioned, that she's not forgot about, that she is, I was like, Sheena's somewhere saying it's all happening, everybody. And so what I appreciated was Lindsay told Carl how she thought their friendship went beyond the show, calling him out on not having the courage to be honest with her about his doubts and concerns. And instead, he internalized it, talked to everyone but Lindsay, made it a storyline. And I could understand how that would have been really hurtful to Lindsay. So here's why I absolutely love Carl. And I believe Carl is the number one guy on Bravo. Maybe period. So Carl shows what it is to be a real man, because with West and with Kyle and all of this stuff, we're just seeing men behave badly. On the Valley, throughout Bravo, we are seeing a lot of men behaving badly, but not with Carl. What Carl did was he gave Lindsay her space to speak. He didn't say a word. He listened intently. He made eye contact. He validated her. He understood her. He offered a sincere amends, which was just, you're right. I'm sorry. I should not have done that. It wasn't these Daniel Bucco bullshit apologies of, well, I was tired and it was the sun and da 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 da. Carl just owned it. And he was like, you're right. I'm sorry. And then Carl gave Lindsay her flowers for, I mean, not literally, but just like, that's the saying, like to give someone their flowers for the role she played in saving his life when his brother died and being there for him and all of that other stuff. I swear to you, I have goosebumps as I'm talking about it because I just appreciate the fact that Carl is such a good man. And the fact that West is swimming in vagina and Carl is single, it shows that the Bravoverse could not be more fucked up. The fact that Carl is single and Danny Bucco has 4 under 4 with a wife he doesn't deserve and is just like a total asshole, it's like justice for Carl. Carl deserves someone amazing. And, here's the interesting thing though. So he and Vanita were like dating for a hot minute, but then Vanita went on the Southern Charm reunion and said that Carl basically, quote unquote, deadheaded the issue when he said that like publicly it was an issue that she like lived so far away and he didn't tell her that. So I'm not sure what happened there, but my point is that good men aren't perfect. Good people, period, aren't perfect. There's a saying in the program, which is progress, not perfection, because being a good human means you're going to fuck up. And the only thing you can do is to own it, to identify your role, what you're going to do different next time, and then behavior change going forward. That is literally the best humans could hope for. That's the equation. So the point is that with Lindsay, and I'm going to be talking about this more, is that she needs to understand the way that her mother wound and how her trauma leads her to choose people who will recreate her greatest fears of abandonment. So let's go to Sierra, because it's the same thing with Sierra, right? I believe that Amanda is manipulating. I've talked about this for weeks now. And on this episode, to me, she absolutely proved my theory. So the thing with Amanda, when she was having a conversation with Sierra and Mia, it was so insane because she said, I wrote it down. She tells Sierra and Mia that she's grateful to have them both because, quote, you say what I think and you speak it out loud and you're never saying anything that I don't actually feel. And I was like, oh my God, Amanda is literally confirming exactly what I theorized weeks ago, is that she is manipulating so successfully that Sierra and Mia and everybody in the house, they're doing her dirty work. And Kyle now knows he's prepared to have this conversation with Amanda about her wanting to separate, and Amanda hasn't even had to say a thing. Further, here's what's so fascinating is when Sierra was trying to hype Amanda up, and listen, there were a million moments that were eye-opening because Sierra was trying to talk to Amanda about, like, be present in your own life. Like, don't just lay down in your pile of garbage. Like, be an advocate for yourself. And I don't think that Sierra was aware in the moment of how wildly important that statement is. But when in private, if you notice, Sierra is the only one to push the topic of separation, while Amanda behaves as if she's a passive participant. So my point is that Amanda's helplessness can be a tactic to get other people to solve her problems and take care of her and like mentally absolve her of any role in it. Because if she's like, well, Kyle's been treating me bad and Sierra brought this up and I just really, and everyone else talked to him about it and I'm just going to go with it. And it's like, you're not a passive participant in your own life. And so Amanda needs to learn and understand the ways that her victimhood, her helplessness gets in the way of her getting the things that she wants. Because while this is such drama, my hope is for Amanda is that she understands how she chose one man that was so bad for her, and then she jumped from that to choose another man who was actually even worse for her. Because what we saw in the reunion preview is the fact that West sat there with his dumb face doing the same shit he did 2 years ago with nothing to say. And Amanda walks off because she's upset. And listen, I understand that. This is going to be a lot for Amanda. Her mental health does matter, and she has pre-existing anxiety and depression, and this is going to impact her. And I have empathy for that as a therapist. But again, she needs to understand the ways that she's created this scenario and the behaviors that she needs to change to get into a better situation. But when she walks off and Wes doesn't follow her and everyone is literally yelling at Wes, especially Lindsay and Sierra, it's like, go get your girl. What kind of man are you? That shows what kind of man he is. He is the kind of man who is just compulsively looking for holes. I'm going to be honest. I know, by the way, I hope Brady cackled at that when I said that as he's editing this. I love leaving little Easter eggs for Brady and being like, did he love this? So Brady, let me know if you loved it. But no, he really is compulsively just like looking for a vagina attached to something. And he doesn't care about any of this. But before I move on to the West piece of it is that at the end of Summer House, when Amanda and Kyle were sitting on the front stoop of the house and having this conversation, Kyle brought up that Sierra said she wanted to separate. And what did Amanda do? Oh, I clocked this so hard. Amanda proceeded to throw Sierra under the bus and say, well, Sierra kept bringing that up to me, but I just didn't want that. I just thought things were good and we've been moving forward. And it's like, Amanda, that is not what you thought. So here's what I realized is that when Amanda was using triangulation to get the whole cast to solve her relationship issues for her with Kyle. But once they left, those manipulation tactics will shift. And what it shifted to was something that is known as paltering. Now, paltering is a term that it has psychological underpinnings, but it's not just a psychological term. It's essentially a term to say people who leave out, it's like lies of omission, but on steroids. So it's not just leaving things out, it's purposely using soft language or using truths to hide the lies. So I guess Amanda's not technically lying that Sierra kept bringing this up because guess what? She did. But if you think for 1 second that Amanda didn't have a role in this, like Amanda places herself in a beta role to get alphas to help her in whatever way she needs. And that is just manipulation, pure and simple. Amanda kept using this paltering, but guess who else used it? West Wilson. And I swear to you, the more I look at these psychological underpinnings between Amanda and West, the more I really understand why these two are drawn to each other. And so I will tell you exactly why I think that is. Kyle and everyone else in the house has said this. Amanda has crippling insecurity, crippling. Okay. And I believe because she's so insecure, she has no sense of self. This is the analogy I'll use. When storms come, right? When trees have really strong roots and a storm comes, those roots keep a tree grounded and it prevents them from being flown about in storms. But when a tree doesn't have good roots, flies right away. And it's the same thing with humans. I believe that Amanda is so painfully insecure, which is part of the reason why she stayed in this relationship for so long when it didn't serve her. But I will say, I think it did serve her in a small way. And I haven't talked about this yet on social media, which is staying in this relationship with Kyle for 10 years too long is another way that Amanda was able to get some of those like helpless needs met, right? Because for 10 years, Amanda's been like the helpless wife who's just watching this man drink and do her dirty and not listen to her and go out, because again, even though Kyle's having like an arc right now, let's not forget, he was a terrible husband. Their marriage was terrible. It needed to end regardless of all of this stuff. But I think that because Amanda is so painfully insecure, she doesn't know how to be alone. And so she went from this terrible marriage to I think her insecurity allowed her to get sucked in by West because West is, I'm trying to think of how to say this appropriately. Some of his behaviors feel predatory, but not like I'm not accusing him of abuse, but I'm saying they appear very manipulative, calculated, and predatory in that his goal is getting sex and his behaviors follow suit. For example, on this, when West and Sierra were making out, which I was like, oh my gosh, this is so bad. And it's like, by the way, this is why everyone is so upset because we see these two people who they didn't just break up 2 years ago. They're like rekindling something because Sierra thinks that West has changed, which he hasn't. He is the same stale fuckboy that he used to be. And I call him a wolf in Charlie Brown's clothing, and I love Charlie Brown, and I hate to have Charlie catch a stray, but I mean, West is just like ridiculous. So one of the things that West said to Ben, which I felt was so wildly telling, is that if me and Sierra are together, tell Sabrina, Ben's girlfriend, to try to not make us date each other in the moment. It's like, sir, what? So Sabrina all of a sudden is the reason now that you're going to like it's like before it was Sierra's fault that, we just weren't that into each other and all these other excuses that he made. And now it's up to Sabrina to not, he and Amanda are very similar in that they use these words, this language to act like they're telling the truth, but that statement in and of itself is so insane. Okay, but let me continue. West says, we are so many steps away from that point. I know what happened when I tried to date her casually and really fuck things up. So West just admitted that he knows Sierra was intentional and he was dating her casually anyway. He told on himself so much. I was like, why are more people not talking about this? And then Wes continued to say, we like each other, he and Sierra. So it's hard to ignore the sexual tension. And all I wanted to do was, and then Ben, of course, inserted, which I'm like, Ben, shut up. Ben inserted jump her bones. And then Wes says, yes, but I am not trying to portray that I am a boyfriend. Okay. Portray. Again, he just told on himself. West, the things that he does, there's no authenticity to it. It's all about portraying or playing a role. So the difference now is he's still trying to casually fuck Sierra. He's just not trying to be a boyfriend anymore. That's the only thing that has changed. And that's a bloop. And that's a clinical read, okay? So West finishes his bullshit saying, I made 1,000 excuses as to why I didn't want to be with her, meaning Sierra, but the last thing I want is her heart broken. Sir, the lie detector determined that that is a lie because you're continuing your same old crusty, dusty behavior and trying to inch Sierra closer to your bed. That scene made me so rageful because here's the thing. So Sierra and he are in his room. Jesse's like laying there quietly giggling and observing like the insanity. Justice for Jesse Solomon, by the way, because in the reunion, Jesse literally breaks down and he's like, I feel like I'm losing a brother. And so I think people need to realize that this is not Scandival. Jesse is not Tom Schwartz. And Jesse is along for the ride in all of this, just like everybody else. And he's grieving too. And Jesse was the only one to tell West, like, you have to do this different. Like, if you're gonna do this again, you have to do this different. And Wes was like, I know. And then he just proceeded to not do it different. So that tells me that nothing that comes out of Wes' mouth is authentic or real because his behaviors show me that he's learned nothing. And his real goal is to just have a lot of sex with a lot of different women without the pesky emotional consequences or like emotional maturity. But let's also not forget that when West is trying to inch Sierra closer to his bed, which she basically jokes in the moment. She was like, West, are you trying to inch me closer to your bed? And she laughs. But that is so problematic. And that's what I mean about the predatory piece, because imagine if now this would have been her decision, right? She would have had to consent. And I'm glad that she didn't. I'm glad that she did not consent. And she was like, I know what you're doing. And she walked away. But imagine if she had sex with West and then all of this happened, because by the way, what we now know is that West has been was a year-long committed relationship with Maya Moreno. I hope I'm saying that right. Meija, Maya Moreno, the Montana girl, but she has a name, so I'm going to use it. And we now know that so not only is West and Amanda having these like little moments, I'll just say they're having moments together that the camera is capturing, that we are all seeing. He's trying to have moments with Amanda. He's trying to have sex with Sierra, and he's in a committed relationship with Maya Moreno. So for me, that gives flavors of compulsivity and a very, very unhealthy relationship with sex, with love, with relationships. You guys know how I roll. I'm not here to diagnose. I'm not here to call it an addiction. But let me be clear. Someone on my Instagram posted that me talking about the compulsivity is giving West a get out of jail free card. And I'm like, if you think addiction is a get out of jail free card, that says more about your lack of understanding about addiction. I'm not saying like, oh, West is a sex addict and therefore he's not responsible. No, I'm saying West is incredibly responsible and he may also have these tendencies underlying his behavior. As someone who has worked with, people in active addiction, there are process addictions like sex and love addiction and gambling and, food and all these things that happen. It's not just always a substance. I mean, does West use alcohol a lot? Yes. Is it kind of normalized in Summer House? Also, yes. Because when you are with Kyle Cook, like your alcohol use is probably not going to come to the forefront because Kyle is too busy just like using alcohol to self-medicate and then just like exploding and behaving like, a king baby. But let me be clear that what West was doing was the same thing Amanda was doing, which is paltering, which is a manipulation tactic involving selective truths to mislead others. And so it allows people to create a false impression while avoiding outright lies and taking any accountability for their stuff. And so the truth that West said is West isn't trying to portray being a boyfriend. He did make excuses, and he and Sierra do like each other, which they don't now, and he never deserved her. But I just think that it's so wild how Amanda and West really are using very similar tactics. And Kyle has come out and he has said that he thinks Amanda is kind of more of a victim of West. And what I'll say is that I think Amanda and West, they have wounds and they have character defects that fit each other like a glove. That's what I'll say. And I don't think that Amanda, I think that she is maybe not aware of it. So, like, when I said at the top of the episode, when we react or recreate our trauma, sometimes if we don't know, it's subconscious. We're not aware of it. So there was a point in my life where I was like, oh, I didn't know that these anger outbursts are because my anxiety is at a fever pitch and it's untreated and I don't even know that it's a thing. And so I think that everyone has a lot of work to do. But the point is that if we put our head in the sand about like, oh, well, life is hard and why does life keep doing this to me? It takes away our sense of agency and ownership about the choices we're making. And so this comes back around to Sierra, okay? Sierra has to understand, just like Lindsay needs to understand, why is she picking men who will abandon her? Sierra needs to understand, why is she picking men who cannot give her what she needs? Because frankly, Sierra does have a history of that. I mean, Austin Kroll and West are two of the biggest red flag humans ever. And, Sierra has this pattern of choosing people who can't give her what she needs. So with Sierra, with Amanda, when people do this, I believe it is due to like feeling inside like you don't really deserve the good things. I think Sierra intellectually believes that she knows she's a good person and she understands good things, but I think she's still doing work on herself and she doesn't quite feel that yet. So sometimes when we have an intellectual understanding of something, but not a whole understanding that reaches our heart and soul, we may know something that we're doing isn't healthy, but our nervous system and our unconscious brain does it anyway, if that makes sense. So Kyle was talking about how he knows that he gave Amanda what she wanted to walk away. But the problem is Kyle doesn't realize that Amanda is participating in setting this all up. And, Kyle said, this is the grave I dug. And it is. I mean, he did dig his own grave. His behaviors are his. No one else is responsible. But now Kyle is starting to see in the city the ways that he was moving from a place of being hurt and not understanding what was really going on. So when this transitions to in the city, first of all, we get a timeline. Okay. So September 2025, in the city filming begins, which was a couple weeks after the summer house ending. Then February 2026, Amanda and Kyle announced their separation. And it showed Amanda saying on Watch What Happens Live that she will be the first to date. By the way, Sierra was sitting right next to her when she said that. And at this point, we know that she was dating West. And then in March 2026, Kyle denied the West and Amanda rumors, and West was on Watch What Happens Live denying rumors about Amanda, but you could tell that he was lying because he makes these really stupid faces. And I had a feeling he was lying, but I'm not one of those people who's going to go on social media and be like, I could tell West was lying by his face, because I have nothing to back that up, but that was just my initial impression. And then April 9th, Amanda and Kyle filmed to discuss the drama, and their talk was very hard to watch. So, like I said, even though Kyle was wrong for acting out, we're now getting rich context beneath his emotional outbursts, because he was being told the entire time that he was the problem, but Amanda was like emotionally out the door, and West is trying to like bring her into his rib cage, and she's ignoring her husband and, texting with West and having all these secret little moments with West, which leads Kyle to ask her, did you have an emotional affair with West? Amanda, when he asked that, she starts to cry, saying she would never cheat. and then called Kyle the cheater, saying that there's video and there's this and there's that. And listen, Kyle has cheated. He's not been a good husband. But what Amanda's doing right now is absolute manipulation, I believe. I believe that she is paltering because people don't intellectually consider emotional affairs cheating. And in fact, I've seen this a lot in therapy, is that people will use intellectual rationalizations to try to soften their behaviors or kind of make them like a helpless victim or like they're not accountable. But the fact is that these people all had a family. Like at the end of Summer House, everyone cried. We were all so sad because they are a family. And whatever happened, whatever the timeline is, there are people that are feeling betrayed, period. And I believe that Amanda, she's trying to deny that you don't just go from being friends and housemates to being in a relationship overnight, right? And we're seeing how the building blocks of this came to be. But Amanda is fiercely denying that. And again, I believe that's a manipulative strategy because, again, for some people, that's not technically cheating. For me, emotional affairs are worse than physical affairs because, I mean, listen, they're all bad, but an emotional affair is like an emotional betrayal. It's not just physical. It's not just sex. That is a real betrayal to self and others. And it's just viewed so differently because, again, we've been taught in the society that it's like, well, sex and oral sex or this or whatever means cheating. But if you're doing something that your partner doesn't know about and wouldn't like or would hurt them or wouldn't approve of and would cause a problem in your relationship if they knew, that's a problem. Doesn't matter if there's sex, if there's whatever, that's a problem. And so I think that Amanda used Kyle as a deflection because she can, right? Kyle has a litany of terrible behaviors to choose from to make herself look like a helpless victim. But again, she needs to look at the role that she played in this. The other interesting tidbits from In the City, because here's the thing, I can't cover the Summer House reunions and In the City. Like, that's too much for me. I cannot cover all that. But what I am going to cover is how we get more context about Amanda and Kyle on In the City. Because for me, I need all the pieces that I can to properly like conceptualize and think about all of this. So that I will continue to talk about. Otherwise, it's just like it's just too much. And I don't know. I'm not a fan of Danielle. I didn't like some of the other cast members that were on In the City. And I'm just like, I don't know, but we'll see. So what was really crazy is that Amanda tells Lindsay that Kyle and Amanda's couple therapist said, you guys hate each other. And I'm like, I've had those moments. Because sometimes here's the fact of the matter is that people will come to couples therapy as a performative show of see, I'm trying or see, we're trying, but it's over and it's been over. And it's just a reminder that therapists are not magicians. Therapists are there to assess, evaluate, and say, okay, what are your goals and how can I help you reach them? And a lot of times couples will not want to do the work because making a long-term relationship work is a ton of work. I've been with my husband for 24 years, I think married for 17. He remembers that stuff. I forget it. But we have had the craziest roller coaster in our years that we've been together. And it literally takes blood, sweat, and tears from both of us, individually and as a couple, to maintain our happy, loving dynamic. And it is hard work. It's like with anything. If you put a piece of fruit on a shelf and just don't do anything, it's going to rot. And it's the same thing for people. It's like coming to couples therapy after it's too far gone is just not going to do anything. But I think this was another way for Amanda to claim, look, I'm trying. It's like, but you're not though. So the couples therapist could clearly tell that they do seem to really hate each other right now. And I don't know that they ever had a great relationship, but that was really sad. But the saddest part came when Amanda and Kyle went out to celebrate their anniversary. They went out to dinner, and Amanda used that opportunity to not only inform Kyle that she's moving out, but what came next was pure manipulation because, like I said, now that Amanda doesn't have everybody to do her bidding for her, we now are seeing her method of problem solving and approaching problems, which is just like not doing it. She's just like completely avoidant and she's not being honest because this is what she said. This isn't permanent. It isn't to end the relationship. I'm not doing this to run away. I'm doing this so we can work out. And it's like, girl. But again, this is the part of the problem where why people are like, why is this such a big deal? Because in September, October, November, Amanda is still claiming that she is committed to this relationship with Kyle. She's trying to make it work while she's further backing away, inching away. And Kyle tells Lindsay he's getting more confused as they go through therapy. But the reason for this is because Amanda's using words suggesting hope, but actions suggesting the end. So Kyle should be confused because she is doing these things to try to save herself to make things easier for her. And what's so bothersome to me about that is the fact that Kyle may not have been a good husband, but he's a good human in that he's really concerned about Amanda. He has gone on social media talking about how people need to be mindful of her mental health. She's getting like all this hate, which again, it's just, we can be upset without like messaging her or, I mean, death threats are absolutely ridiculous, but just like we can mind our own business, just like feel how you feel privately and just be cool. You know what I mean? But I think that Kyle, he said on Watch What Happens Live, like when Amanda got up and cried and left and Wes didn't go after her, he's like, do I go after her? You know, when they had their talk, she came over and he's like, you look skinny. I'm concerned. So the point of this is that Kyle and Amanda, they've always had a bad relationship and they both need to do work to understand why they were in that relationship and why they let it go on too long. But Kyle has a good heart in that Amanda has given him every reason to be like, screw you. I'm not talking to you, but he's still trying to get fans to support her. He's still trying to give her grace. He's still trying to be there for her. And I do think that that speaks volumes about Kyle. I do. So I absolutely, positively cannot wait until this reunion. I will be locked the fuck in with my notes, like my notes app is, it's going to be like me typing on my phone and just like smoke coming off. So I can't wait. And I will continue to talk about, you know, what we see on In the City. Again, that gives rich context. And I hope this has all made sense. I really do have a lot of empathy for everybody involved. And I don't like when the fandom goes hog wild. Like we all just need to remember that humans are imperfect. They're fallible. We all fuck up and make mistakes. But I also do think it's important to be mindful of our reactions to this because our reactions to this will actually tell us a lot about what we are experiencing. And with reality TV, the best thing that we can get out of it is some self-awareness and some insight into ourselves because we're not friends with these people. We don't know them. The only thing that we can learn is like, what is this situation telling me about me? And listen, this is not only someone telling you this who's a therapist, but also in my own therapy, I am always looking for hard situations to look at an opportunity for growth and understanding about myself. So that's why I encourage everybody else. If you're triggered by things, look at your reaction and use that to help yourself because that's the best we're going to get from reality TV. Otherwise, we're just watching shit and we're triggered. This is why I do this because it's like, well, I love this, but it kind of sucks. So let me make something good out of it. And that's all we can do. So before I end, one of the other things that I really wanted to talk about was the Valley because Danny Bucco is, I'm trying to think of how to say this appropriately. He gives me, my spidey senses go off. Let me put it this way. My spidey senses go off with Danny Bucco and I have real concerns. And the last episode that we watched, watching Lala be the only person brave enough to stand up to Danny, I've never been so happy to see Lala in my life. Everyone is there seeing how this man is treating this woman, and Lala's the only person calling it out. And I just think, thank goodness for Lala. Because the one thing I did say is that despite the fact that Lala uses the blanket term narcissist way too often, she just does. As I always talk about on this podcast, Narcissism is a full word. It is a DSM diagnosis of narcissistic personality disorder that has its own traits and requirements for the diagnosis and things like that. So when people call someone a narcissist, that is overused. And all of this kind of like social media therapy speak is watering down what things really mean. So I understand what she means when she says it. I just don't like that. Because again, I'll repeat, everyone has narcissistic traits and tendencies, myself included and Lala included. So I understand that she's traumatized from her relationship with Randall, because I do believe that man is like Danny Bucco and Tom Sandoval and a lot of the other men that we watch. Lots of narcissistic traits and tendencies. But we just have to be careful not to dilute it too much. That's just my PSA for the day. But one thing that Lala, like, there is a man with narcissistic traits and tendencies. Nothing will piss that man off more than when he is seen by a woman who will call it out. And I will say that because when I was working in my practice, I specialized in treating men with narcissistic traits and tendencies, some antisocial traits and tendencies. And I can see men like this, like Lala can see men like this. And when men know that are like this, that you can see them, they will do everything to try to either talk you out of it or be like, no, this isn't true. But then when they can't do that, then they will do something to either harm or shun or discredit, which is exactly what Danny's doing. But Lala observed that Nia and Danny's dynamic is deeply rooted in their faith, where men are king and women play a supportive role. And I couldn't agree more, is that there are many organized religions that espouse patriarchal and misogynistic values as a way to keep women submissive. And that's the truth. And it's not necessarily all religion, and not all people in organized religion use it that way. But, you take Mormonism, for example. I mean, so much of that is rooted in patriarchal misogyny. And there's like 12 white men in charge of the whole church and like $1 billion industry. I mean, that's never gonna be healthy. So I think that she's right about that, is that this mega church teaches them, keep your shit behind closed doors. And what bothered me so much is that Tom Schwartz replaced Danny Bucco on Watch What Happens Live. It was supposed to be Danny and Luke, and then Danny all of a sudden had to work. Now, on Watch What Happens Live, Andy Cohen co-signed the fact that Danny had to work, because if it was just that he didn't want to go, he's like, we would have heard about that. But I'm like, listen, I didn't like Andy standing up for Danny, because it's like, fine, maybe he did have to work, but he is still trying to evade and avoid and making bullshit excuses. During the Valley episode, he posted this like faux apology to his wife, which I posted it on my social media. If you want to see it, go over there. I'm not even going to read the whole thing, because it's just blah, 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 blah. It's basically Danny still being like, well, I'm not trying to make excuses, but I was tired and I was sunburnt and I was hungry and I was this. And it's like, listen, let's go back to Carl. Carl showed what a true ownership and apology is, right? And Danny shows how to continue to give a fake apology and do nothing about it, which is better known as manipulation. But watching Nia just like try to corral Danny, it was like so sad. And it is the fawn response. So by the way, I've talked about this a lot. The fawn response is a trauma response where people try to soften what's going on in the situation. They try to use soft tones, gentle voices, trying to encourage the person who's having a tantrum or behaving badly to just be safe with them. Like, they're basically, a fawn response is saying, I'm begging you to be a safer person right now, instead of saying, well, why am I accepting this behavior? Why am I not leaving and giving this a minute? Right. And so what Nia's doing is just fawning with Danny. It's because of her trauma, where she feels lucky to be housed, to be clothed, to have a family. And I think at the end of the day, she's terrified about losing all those things. I think Nia is biologically, neurologically terrified that if Danny continues to get too much smoke, she will lose her family. What if Danny loses his job? What if Children and Youth comes and says this man has a problem with alcohol? So what I think now is happening is that Nia and Danny are doing damage control, but Nia is doing it because she's scared of everything that I just said, which I don't love that for her, that they're trying to put on this brave face on social media, but I understand why she's doing it. But Nia has become so well acquainted with Danny's drunken move shifts that it's like she can sense the storm rolling in, and then she fawns and she fawns and she fawns. And normally that helps. I've called Danny Sir Slurs a lot because you can tell when he starts to slur that he's very intoxicated. And trying to talk to someone in that state is literally like trying to herd cats. It's impossible. It's never going to happen. You just have to cut your losses and walk away. And the fact that she is unable to do that tells me that A, this is a trauma response, and B, that she is accustomed to doing this. Because only someone who is conditioned to believe that this is normal would continue to do this all night. Because think of it. For me, for example, if my husband was behaving this way, which he wouldn't, I would literally lose my shit, tell him he was being a fucking asshole, tell him to get out, get away from me, and do not come to me. And I certainly wouldn't sleep in a bed next to him. But then what was so insane is that the next day, Nia apologizes for bringing this to the forefront. Okay, here's what really bothers me about this is that Nia has been conditioned to believe they should keep their dysfunction behind closed doors. And in a confessional, Danny said the quiet part out loud, which is, this isn't how we operate. We don't have these conversations, not when we are around other people. We do this in private. And he literally just proved everyone's point. He's not sorry enough about the behaviors to change them. He's not that sorry, but he's sorry that his behaviors are being seen, that people are seeing behind the mask. And so I wasn't shocked when the next day he's like, he and probably people in this church have conditioned Nia to be like, well, you need to keep this behind closed doors. And so for her to feel the need to apologize for anything is insane. Because for me, if my husband was acting like this and I was on TV, I would have gotten a megaphone and been like, this man is behaving like a piece of shit. But Nia is too busy trying to cover it up, which gives me the feeling that she is accustomed to having to accept verbal abuse, because let me be clear, what we are witnessing with Danny is verbal abuse, period, dot, end of sentence. Verbal abuse. Okay. And when Lala said, I can't imagine how you talk to her behind closed doors, but this episode was a peek at that. So part of the problem is Nia's convinced herself that she's betrayed Danny when she was simply looking for validation, and she's the one being betrayed. What happens is then, because Nia's moving from a place of unresolved trauma, she betrays herself by minimizing her own emotions, saying she was kind of hurt. And I was like, kind of? Kind of? What does this man have to do to get you to be hurt? Stab you? I mean, come on, Nia, come on. So Danny said he wasn't like talking her into the right tone, which again is just like bullshit, blah, blah, blah. His approach was terrible from tone to content. Tone, content, behaviors, actions, all of it was terrible. He said like alcohol takes away my inhibitions. It makes me shorter and snappy. Well, then that's a problem. If you're drinking alcohol and you're turning into the Hulk, that's a real problem. And the answer isn't going inside to grab another beer when you're already slurring. But again, Nia can't say that because the cameras are on, and God forbid everyone know her perfect family isn't so perfect. So I think one of the major pieces here that I need to point out is that at the end, Lala talked to Kristen about, you need to call this out, because Kristen and Luke still to this day, by the way, are supportive of Danny and Nia. And Lala calls Kristen about her need to intervene. And Kristen thinks that being a good friend is helping Nia hold up the facade. And that's not helping her, that's enabling her. I think Lala was right when he said with Kristen, it's not a friendship, it's an alliance. Because Kristen always calls out shitty bad behavior. And it's like, but you're going to support Danny? Really? It's just not a good look for them. So the last point I want to make is that, Kristen said that she admires the way that Danny and Nia keep their dysfunction behind closed doors. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? And I hope that Kristen is confusing privacy for respect, because let me be really clear. Waiting to disrespect your spouse in the privacy of your own home isn't anything to be admired. There's nothing healthy about that. So Danny's not mad that he's being disrespectful. He's mad that people are seeing it, and it's not just happening behind closed doors. And that's a real fucking problem. I'm going to be honest. That's a real problem. And then Luke went on Watch What Happens Live, calling himself a Danny defender and saying that he and Kristen wanted to be there for them without inserting themselves. And it's like, but we need to understand those are the only people that Danny's going to keep around in their life. Think about it. Everyone who speaks against Danny, Janet, who was right, by the way, to speak about it, Janet, Lala, Brittany, Danny cuts out of their life and then he tries to cut out of the group, which is giving like suppressive person in Scientology. I'm telling you, there are very problematic, very serious behaviors going on, and we really need to pay attention to that. So I think for now, this will be the end of the episode. Those are most of my thoughts. But like I said, stay tuned because next episode is going to be M&M Hour with our dear friend Mandy Slutzker. And we're going to talk about it all. We're going to talk about Summer House, the Valley, in the city, things like that. So stay tuned for that next week. I would just want to thank you so much for listening. Thank you for your support. As I mentioned at the top of the episode, please check out all the ways to support me, not just listening to the podcast. There's also Patreon, Spreaker Supporters Club, following me on Instagram at Your Bish Therapist, YouTube, all the ways that you do it. Thank you. And I would love for people to head on over to Patreon and join me there. Also, last thing I'm going to request is to leave a 5-star review because for those who listened to my episode with Tasha, the pop astrologist, a lot of the things she talked about in my reading were very, very eye-opening and very accurate. And so the thing about me is that I'm going to give you a little example of why these reviews help. I got a very nasty comment about how I act like I am an expert on anxiety. And because I'm a therapist, I'm not, and I need to be less confident. And I was like, you can go fuck yourself because I have treated complex PTSD and anxiety disorders for over a decade, and I've lived with it for 45 years and treated my own for the last conservatively 10. Okay. So if that doesn't make me an expert on anxiety, I don't know what does. And if my confidence bothers people, well, then I'm not for you because I am confident when I know what I'm talking about. But I also have the humility to say, I can't do math. I know nothing about physics. There are a million subjects I know absolutely nothing about. I don't claim to know anything else, but this I know. Anxiety, I know her. Okay. So the point is that people are supportive, but people are equally love to tear me down. And the greatest point about my healing, and this is a good way to end the episode, the greatest point about my healing is that there is nothing that anyone is going to say to me that's ever going to make me hate me again. Nothing. There is nothing that anyone is going to say to me that is going to stop me from what I'm doing right now. Nothing. There is nothing that anyone is going to say to me that's going to get me to feel bad or scared or stop this podcast or be mad at myself. I have the healthy self-esteem to say, I know what I know. I don't know what I don't, but what I do know, I'm going to talk about confidently. And this has taken me decades to get here. So with all due respect, people who don't get that can fuck all the way off. Okay? So that's a nice way to end the episode. For all of you who understand me and support me, thank you so much. Thank you for the love and support. I would not be here without this Bish community. You keep me going. You keep my head above water. You give me life. So thank you to all. Sending love to you and yours. And ta-ta for now. Disclaimer. Posts are not intended to diagnose, treat, or provide medical advice. Your Bish Therapist is for entertainment and informational purposes only. The podcast, my opinions, and posts are my own and not associated with past or present employers, any organizations, Bravo TV, Greatheart Productions, or any other television network. The information in YBT Podcast and on its social media is provided for general informational purposes only and is not intended to diagnose or treat. Please do not act or refrain from acting based on anything you read, see, hear on YBT Podcast or associated social media. Communicating with YBT via email and or social media does not form a therapeutic alliance. Melissa, operator of YBT, is unable to provide any therapeutic advice, treatment, or feedback.